people live in their reactivity. And that's not to say that I'm better than them or whatever. It's just their way of surviving is like, if I just stay constantly in reactivity, because God forbid I put this down for a second.
Hello, Katie. Kirsten.
Hello, Sophie, and hello, Kirsten.
Hi.
Such a treat. We were just talking about whose meeting story is the correct one. And so to have all of these different really sources of great appreciation for all of us, I think it's such serendipity or fate that we're meeting and co-creating. So what I want to say about you, Kirsten, is that from the very first time that I saw you on Criminal Minds, I went, that is a creator and a force of nature. And I just must watch everything that she's in. And I would fast forward through so that I could see what you were up to and how you were moving the plot, because you really held the heart and truly the heart of that show and still do, but also the creativity and the what is she going to do now?
Just my head hurts because I'm smiling so hard. Just can't stand it. I was telling all of my parts last night, like, you get to be on a podcast because you got asked. You didn't even win a raffle. Sophie and Katie asked you. And then all my parts are like, no, they didn't. And you're like, no, really, you specifically, you get to be the company I keep right now. It hurts it in the best way. It's so lovely to be here. And I feel like all of those versions are correct. Although I must stand behind the fact that, Sophie, you had a business that was very close to my house. Mm-hmm. And my girlfriend had gone in and she had seen it. And she came home and she was like, oh, there's this place. And I went there and I saw you and I was like, how do I get close to that woman and not be weird? Because sometimes I can be a little too
weird, please. Yeah. We like weird.
So then we started, I talked to you one day and I remember you like, oh God, I like talking to her so much. I should walk away. Am I keeping her? Oh God. And I was so excited about it. And I was like, oh, she's so cool. She's so cool. Everything, her hats are cool. Everything, her glasses and the way she walks around. And yet she's so welcoming and open with everybody. And it's so neat. Meanwhile, side note, my therapist, who is a genius creator, had studied a lot of Katie and Gay and had sent me a lot of their stuff on the way. So I have every app. I don't know if anyone knows that Katie and Gay Hendricks have done apps. I have every single one of them. On their website, they have a bunch of programs. I have every single one. And if it comes in book form, I have spent a pretty penny getting it all bound up in a spiral note thing. Oh, I've printed out everything. Wow. I am a devotee of you both. And then it was really weird because then I found out that Sophie knew. And then I was like, how do I not be a creeper and say I know you're friends. I don't really know either one of you, but I know you guys are friends. And sometimes I like to take pieces of lipsticks and be like, let's pretend this is Katie and this is Sophie. And we're going to dinner. And then hey, I'm Kirsten. Can we hang out? So this is a real thrill for me.
It's funny because I was going to talk about appreciation with both of you, how of a world we would have if we could communicate like this and say what we love of each other and what touched us and what inspired us. And that was the base of connection and communication, which around Katie, I know is true and hoping to my world be more true. But God, does it feel good to hear goodness, right?
Well, I want to jump on, just before we really focus on Kirsten, I want to jump on why she connected so much with you at your business Shape House. Your curating of aesthetics and how people can love themselves more deeply in a very practical way, but that also expands the possibility for their own creativity. And it's also no big deal the way that you can handle 1,400 things going on at the same time, and shuffle them all and make it all work under duress is really pretty stunning. And so I totally get why when I met Sophie, within the first 5 minutes, we were like lifelong friends. We were just blah, 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 babbling at each other. And, this sense of recognition. And my sense is what's really primary for all of us is connection and creativity, the co-creativity that comes from genuine connection. And also how much you're not flustered by, but actually love the unexpected. Okay, what are we going to do with this? And, this happened. And now what?
Right. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to jump on what she's saying about you, Sophie, and being someone who kind of came into a space. I am always really in tune with how people choose to interact with people that could be perceived as having less power than them. I'm very interested in that because I think that people can smuggle in sometimes a lot of their feelings they might be having about their day or themselves on people that don't get to have a voice, whether that be a waiter or a child or an employee. And I was so taken, and I always think I've told this to my agent and manager. There was a point where we were negotiating a contract, and I learned this from watching people like you. I learned this from other people, and I go, who are the real powerful people? And I told my agents managers when we were going in to negotiate the last time, and they were like, you can go in on your own and you can ask. And I was like, no. Do you know that so-and-so has a big fancy agent and so-and-so? Why don't we all go in together? And they were like, but you don't have to. And I was like, but isn't it more powerful to be able to share power? Isn't it more powerful to be able to say there's an abundance economy of power and I don't have to hold it all? And I loved that about watching you interact with people, because it was sort of like, we're all here and we're all little meat puppet suits with all little sparks in us. And we're just, the little sparks are engaging and they're all the same. And I love that.
That really touches me from both of you, because if I was to, the tomb thing that I want people to say when I'm on my way out, it would probably be that my love has nothing to do with what do you look like and what can you do for me. And I've always had this, this desire and intent to just be, they're all humans, right? We're all humans. So to have this ability to be seen that way, both of you, thank you, because that is, thank you.
I'm just going to take some moments here. Nom, 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 nom. So you're like a party that's already been going on, Kirsten. And so whoever comes in the door gets handed the party hat and come on, let's just play. And I love it how you play both with what's going on, but also with possibilities. If we mix this up with this, if we put this before this, if we added in something else, what would happen then? And so your commitment to creativity and to discovery, I find really inspiring.
Oh, geez. Thank you. Wow. Thanks. I'm listening to you going, I guess I do that. And it's interesting because, I want to be real clear that it does not happen all the time. I found myself in a real, what felt like where you feel like the world is happening and I'm trying to do all of my practices and I'm doing all of my things and I'm trying to stay creative, but whatever is happening externally feels like it knows better, like it knows more information than my creativity does. And I found myself even last night, I was listening. I was like, I haven't listened to the podcast, which now I'm obsessed. I listened to 3.5 of them last night. And I was walking around and, sometimes you're in a space with other people that are having so much going on that they're not in a creative space. And I found myself being like, I wonder, and it was it was a little bit like putting on a show for myself to just be like, and then I was like, cooking, let's cook. I like cooking. Kayla likes cooking. I pretended like I was you a little bit. So it worked, by the way, just for me. I think other people thought I was varying between nuts and trying to put on a bit of a, like, I think that is the tricky part about being creative, because creativity can make you appear to other people like you're like you're trying. I think I've experienced this. People think that I'm trying to be like more spiritually awake, or I don't have any problems, or I'm not acknowledging, real life and the real problems, or, oh, it must be really easy for you because you're loaded and you're famous and whatever. Now, that is absolutely true. And this is where it gets tricky. Like I will say all the time, like, I'm loaded. You're right. And when I say that to rich people, they get all puffy and weird because they don't even like saying they're loaded. And
don't let anybody know.
Yeah, because then you're like, well, I'm not that loaded and you should see my taxes and you should whatever, because that somehow makes it okay to not take radical responsibility for your experience. Maybe. And I think because my life can look so charmed, which it is, there's that. And then I don't get to let people know anymore, like, it wasn't like this before. And it doesn't have to look like charmed for you to behave or choose creative ways to deal with things. You can still take radical responsibility for your experience and transform it as much as you can, even if it all looks cattywampus, because really, at the end of the day, that's all we've got. And the endeavor to create something new feels better. The worst thing that's going to happen is you're still going to stay in your same situation, but you're going to be more excited and happy. And the best thing that's going to happen is that your experiences are going to change by dint of your internal hologram being a beautiful place to exist.
And I'm hearing two things I want to underline here. One is that it's like you're a hologram or a lantern or a lighthouse, that your internal light does ripple. But what I hear both of you talking about, which I think is central to both of you, is that you're talking about power with and really encountering and countering power over, and that you're intent on letting people have their individual creativity, but also their co-creativity wherever they are on the power hierarchy.
Yes. Yes.
And I admire that and appreciate that, especially in a profession that is so hierarchical. And in the movies and productions and television, you encounter that every day.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of the time I either know it's happening, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, like I had an encounter like a couple of weeks ago. I was doing something and it was happening, and I'm at the place now most of the time where it's happening and it goes right by, like it's like someone drove by with a flag that says you suck, but it's going by so fast and I'm too busy to really know, is that about, I don't care. I'm just over here doing my cool. So I'm better at like not taking it in. I mean, it's not even not taking it in anymore. Most of the time it's like, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Did that just happen? That's also kind of funny. Because it is. And, honestly, if you take this business, like, I don't know, this is I have one of those jobs and spaces where like people go like, oh, if I had that, I mean, I thought that like, if I got to do this for a living, like this is all I've ever wanted to do. Like, period, is just like that I get to make stuff that people ask me to like go somewhere and read a short story or like act on a TV show. Like the fact that I get to do that. And then sometimes I get a paycheck is like, and I know I think that I've probably grossed people out because I'm so like, no, I really am that Pollyanna and excited about it. But I thought that it was the getting of that would make you happy. And I learned incredibly quickly when I got the job. I was like, oh, okay. And that's what I always tell people, like when I go to schools and stuff like that, like if you think that the job is going to make you happy, like be around people who do this for a living. I've never seen more unhappy people than people who get what they want sometimes. So,
or who get what they think they want.
Or who get what they think they
based
want.
on what's going to make them feel valuable, or, like I finally am myself, and I'm, and other people value me too.
Right.
But that's not what makes that.
Right. And I think that creativity, like me creating stuff, me making stuff, makes me happy. And that is what I want. So I hear what you're saying, Katie. Yeah. Like getting what you want obviously will make you happy, but it's that, like, it's not the money. The money simplifies things, but it's not the money. It's not the people staring at you, attention-y thing. I mean, there's little spouts of dopamine, but like that's not, it doesn't last. And
it doesn't last.
Yeah, it doesn't last. I find myself constantly having to, because I know creativity makes me happy. It makes me happy. It's much more peaceful, I guess, if I just was like, well, when I'm working on this TV show I have a job at, that I've been so lucky to have, like, since, I don't know, I feel like it's been on since All in the Family. It's like been on forever. But if I'm lucky enough to be doing that, then I am acting. But that job at a certain point on most days can not on its own be creative, because it's like I'm providing a service. And sometimes it is creative, but that doesn't mean that creativity doesn't make me really happy. So what do I just sit around and eat bonbons and wander around? I don't know, drink fancy rich people water all day. And then when I have a job, go work, then I won't be happy. So I actually do things almost constantly to be, I have a salon that's, if you live in Los Angeles, and I don't know when this comes out, but on the 30th of November, I'm doing a salon at Theater of Note where we read. It's called Bits. And this is the 6th month we've done it, where you bring up something that you're creating. And the whole point of it is it's for the artist. So if you're in the audience, lucky you get to witness, but it's a bit of something that someone is making. You don't have to be a professional creator. You can be any kind of person. And I have a rule that if you show up at Bits, and you come and then you say to me, Kirsten, I want to be in a Bits, you can automatically be put in a future bit of Bits. And it's people get up and they do a song they're working on. It might not even be a finished song. My beloved, as you know, Katie, Stephen Moffat, is a veterinarian by trade, but he is an amazing songwriter. So he gets up and like it forces him every month to be like, I got to work on a song. And I have a couple of friends who come every month. So they've done it now maybe 6 times. So they have 60 minutes almost of creation that they've made in the last year. And people that, one of our, at this Theater of Note, a 70-year-old, David Bickford, did a magic trick that he worked on all during the pandemic. And that was his bit. And so we're doing one on the 30th of November, and I do another one, I think, on the 14th of December. And we give half the money to the theater. We give half the money to a charity that I think is worthy of it. Right now, we're giving it to Doctors Without Borders. And I do that, and it's a pain. Man, I get up and I'm like, I don't want to write anything. I don't have to. And why? And then on the day of, I get these overwhelming waves of apathy. I'm famous for, like, right when I'm at the edge of something I really want, I get very sleepy and apathetic and sort of like I'm an imposter. There's a lot of that. And I have learned that, like, that is part of the joy. Part of the joy is being like, I see you, apathy. I see you, imposter. And we're doing this anyway. And then the next day I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad I did that. And
can we stop on that one? I feel like a lot. Oh, don't.
Sorry. What do you say?
That was a big idea. Have a little water. I'm really curious to that one, because I do think that a lot of us have this something that's trying to sabotage the purpose that we're trying to do. What is that? Like, why do we have something that's getting in the way of doing something that we know we've done it so many times. On the other side, we know we're so happy we did it. We're so happy we went. And somehow the next time, like let's stay in lethargy. Like, what is that?
Isn't that the upper limit?
I mean, that's just what I was going to say. It's a particular version of the upper limit problem that I think is aimed at creative women.
Huh.
I mean, that's, and I'm just going to stand by this because I've seen it, from my elder years, I can say I've seen this now for many decades of that a woman coming up with a great idea, and showing her creativity. Like my experience has been like, oh, who do you think you are? And there was also a great cartoon of corporate people around the table, and the woman comes up with a great idea, and then the other bubble says, "That's a great idea. Maybe we should have one of the men suggest this." Oh. So it's I really see it as your recommitment to what creativity itself generates. That when I'm creating, I am the creativity. There's a way in which I, as a person disappear and I become the different forces playing with each other. So I think part of it is there is this force that says, no, don't do that. It's not safe, which comes from thousands of years of, us hunkering down. But there's also this, oh, what if we went over the hill? And what if we put this together with this? And those two, just seeing those dialogue together, I think is part of the creative dance.
Yes, I agree with you. I often say that, like, when I'm acting, even, like, it doesn't matter. You have those beautiful moments where you're in it and you feel it and you're thinking the thoughts of the character. And then you have moments where you're like, is that set piece going to fall on me? Oh, I really nailed that last moment. And you can say you're not in the moment, but I think what's interesting is to watch a person go through whatever they're going through in their body and acknowledge it, clock it and go, oh, I'm doing that. Oh, clock it and do something with it. And that is what the audience sees, in the proper nouns. And, the other thing that I was thinking about when you were saying that is, like, I think what happens also is that, that the part of us that creates, the part of me that creates, the part that gets apathetic or that picks on it or that whatever, it's almost like it's, you were saying the business can be so competitive. It's the business, to me, is the business of the whole world, is this story we get told of, like, who are you to think you can do that? Or, like, you're not even good at that. Or,
oh, honey,
you're on a, whatever, name it. You've never done X. Why are you doing it? Or you're just on a procedural drama. Why makes you think all of those things that when you externalize your creativity, you're being so vulnerable because you're letting the business look at it. You're letting whatever the business is out there, whether it's your own critic or other people, whatever, you're giving it air. And when you give things air and you give other people the opportunity to look at it, it's this little baby that gets, like, it's victim to the elements. And one of the things that I remember, this is before I got the fancy day job, I had some big audition, and I try to remember this, and it is one of my biggest things I forget. I forget it in relationship. I forget it when I'm creating. I forget it every day, and I have to remind myself. But when I had this audition, I went in, and I think I'd gotten called back. It was a very big deal movie, and I didn't get it. And the first time when I went in and I auditioned, I left, and I wasn't even sure if I had done a good job or not, but I was just very not gentle with myself at all. Just very, like a lot of energy. And it was so painful. And then I got a call and said, you got a call back. And then I was very nice to myself. I was very like, oh, you got a call back. And I had this realization before I went in for the second callback that for me, the part of me that creates, I could call it the inner child. I could call it God. I could call it the universe. I see it, though, as something very innocent and very just judgeless, just open. And I ask it to go and put itself out there And then she does all this work and then I destroy her. And I told myself when I went in for that audition, I was like, you're going to walk in with you. Who cares what happens? I came up with one goal, which was don't trip when you walk in the room, which if you knew my eye-hand coordination could be a good challenge. And if you don't do that, that's it. You're going to walk in that room with yourself and you're going to leave attached to yourself. You're the only person that's going to stay here with you. Everybody else could leave. You're going to stay. And it was such a powerful thing. And it was really hard to do because you kind of want to escape and go be part of the business, go be part of the people that get to beat up on her so that, you feel smart or something. But I still do that. I did that last night when I was talking to someone and I felt like, oh, how do I make this better? Should I just start collapsing and just kind of figuring out what they want out there instead of just like, baby, you're okay. You're doing a good job. And they can think whatever they're thinking about you. And let's just stay here. Let's not leave our space for them, which I think is something that I need to remember as a creator all the time.
That's so lovely that you're saying that, because when the pain of being judged is basically the pain of being abandoned, as a living being with all of these things going on all at once, and your commitment and recommitment to be with yourself. It's kind of like, you got your arm around you and like, no matter what happens, I got my arm around you. We're staying together. And to me, that's the core of building your loving relationship with you lifelong. Because, stuff is going to happen, whether it comes from outside or in you or, from the world. And so I love that commitment and that you were able to pull that, to yourself in the middle of all of the business.
Yeah.
Would you say, both of you, I'm curious, would you say that the less and less time between us coming back to ourselves, like recollapsing that time a little bit, do you think that's the work? Like that somehow, because we feel we get doubt. Like I'm wondering if the goal is not so much not to have those moments, but rather maybe to shorten how long it takes to get back on the inner loving horse of sorts.
Oh boy, I hope that's the goal, because considering how often I fall off the horse, I hope that's the goal. I found myself last night, I was like, should I call and cancel? Because I don't know if I'm the kind of woman who can, they probably never do what I'm doing right now. Like I do that a lot. So I hope I hope the practice, like I hope that's the practice.
Well, it sounds like you're doing the practice. And I think the doubting is also part of stretching yourself so that you're not, going along, because everything changes so quickly that I need to be able to be agile to take myself with me in all of those different changes. And whoops, if I leave something like, whoops, I almost left her, that's going to happen. And I think what a lot of people do is I'm just not ever going to let that happen. So I'm never going to go out of control. And I'm going to make myself rigid rather than, more all over the place.
Right. Yeah. And I think that the reactivity, I think like it's what you're saying, Sophie. I think some people, and like what Katie is saying, I think some people choose to live so much in reactivity. I find myself using so many Joni Davis words. That's my genius therapist right now. And I'm like, I should call her and be like, make sure I'm doing this right. She should be on this podcast.
You are doing it right.
Write it down. But like the reactivity, some people, all of us, I get reactive. And when I am reactive, I'm so afraid and I'm so convinced that my reality is the only one. If I was reactive and we were all telling our stories about how we all met each other, I would have nailed I'd be like, nope, mine's right. And that's it. And I've been like that before many times, and I will be like that again. And it's that some people that we encounter, and especially a lot of people that I think we see out in the world a lot. People live in their reactivity. And that's not to say that I'm better than them or whatever. It's just their way of surviving is like, if I just stay constantly in reactivity, because God forbid I put this down for a second and I accept that everything is yes and, that everything is happening at the same time, that all of these realities exist. It's the way I think about, like, I want to believe that there's some beautiful punchline. I don't know what it is, but I believe in that Albert Einstein, there's a friendly universe, because I have to. It's what gets me through the day. And it's why I make motions toward what I want, because I don't believe that I think it counts. I think a good thought counts. I think a prayer counts. I think a call to your representative counts. It doesn't, and even if no one hears you, it counts because you hear you. So I really believe in that. And I think that if we all knew that there was a point to every motion we made toward what we want, if we all knew we were infinite creatures, that there's no, you can't get it right. And if we all knew that, I don't feel like I couldn't linearly get through the day. So I feel like we make up these things of like, it's happening right now. The only way it works is my way. Like, I feel like that, but but I want to believe that those people, even the people, I did a play in the springtime that my best friend Phineas Kiyomura wrote, and it was called Nimrod. And it was all written in verse, and it was about the Trump presidency. And it was gender bent, and it was very strange. And Lonnie was the person playing Melania, was the lead. And Nimrod, which, if you remember, was the king of Babel, was the Trump character. And I played the Trump character. And I worked on this so much because it was really hard to do, but I didn't watch any. I watched videos of him dancing, and I listened to some things, and we're all just going to make a rash generality that the queer kid right here, the left-handed queer kid, is probably a progressive. So I am. So I had my own opinions about his behavior, and I thought he was mean and all this. I still do, but I was playing this guy, and I really took such, I don't know, like kinship in his reactivity. And I found myself being this big baby that made people would get done with the show like, I hate that you made me love him. I still hate his behavior. But that's, I think, the key is that if we all understand that we can find behavior abhorrent, but we are all capable of abhorrent behavior, and that human beings are just human beings. We're all just broken little babies, and some of them are real whiny and really disruptive, but like the behavior is abhorrent. And I had such pleasure in being that. I got told by multiple very fancy people that I actually do the best Donald Trump impersonation of anyone they've ever seen, including Alec Baldwin. So I keep thinking, like, as a Thanksgiving present to myself and everyone, I'm like, I might just go on Instagram and start telling stories like this weird man that people can just decide who I am.
I love it. Oh, I'd love it if you do that.
I don't know, but I think it's that reactivity. Even the people that we really demonize, even the people that I really demonize, I have to see in them like that their reactivity is hitting my reactivity. Not to say that their behavior isn't abhorrent. You shouldn't say like, not okay, get off the world's foot. Like, don't act like that. But there's still integrity to them as a human person. Did we go off on a thing?
I don't think so. But what I want to pull out of this is that when you were saying, I believe, my sense is, Kirsten, it's not about belief. It's that you're having a direct experience.
Oh, thank you for saying that. I really am.
So, and that's what has the juiciness and the aliveness, and that also reactivity is fear in action. Mm-hmm. And so as you're playing with the reactivity and actually loving it, through your behavior, it shifts into creativity. Reactivity and creativity are really flip sides of each other.
That's really cool. That's really cool. And you know, it's as you were talking, I was thinking about, like, I work on this crime show, and this is something I think about all the time. All the time. I feel a big responsibility for working on a show that I think is far too violent, that I think should not be on at the time it's on. I think that there should be a button or something that forces you to watch something different if you've watched 2 episodes of that, to diversify. And because I get concerned that people are going to see the world like that, or people are going to let their kid walk in and see it. Because my nervous system, I need to curate my, what I take in more. And I love my job, and I don't have any gripes about that. And if people can just take it for the mystery that it is and look at it like a big kabuki joke of whatever. But the part that I think always gets to me, and when I hear, like, even myself say, like, I want to believe, and you said, no, I think you're having an action. And then I thought, I am. And sometimes you hear someone say, and I work on a job where I hear people say it about, well, that thing or that person or that person, they're just evil. Yeah. That is just, you can't do anything about that, because that has to be just destroyed, put away, whatever. I remember when I was a school teacher, that was my day job for a long time. I was a long-term sub. I remember going to a class and talking to a kid, and one of the kids said, "Oh, Kirsten, Miss K, don't talk to him. The teacher's given up on him." And it was horrible. And at the same time, like, I was engaging with this kid because I was like, he's really bringing up some, I shouldn't gender them. They're really bringing up some, feelings, and they're really, going for it. And if someone said, like, oh, that person, like, they, burned down an orphanage and, like, ate all of the chocolate, so none of us get to eat it anymore, I would believe that, because I'd be like, they were like that. But then I hate thinking that there is such a thing as a person who just is that. Like, I can't hold on to those beliefs. And people say, oh, that's just how they are. And it's evil exists. I just have a really hard time with that concept. Without it being, yes, I know there are things that are evil, but without there being the opportunity for alchemy, I just have a hard time with that.
Well, perhaps you are an alchemist.
It's funny because I was raised by an incredibly narcissistic mother, as Katie and I often compare notes on what has happened. But the gift, I feel like, as you were talking, I just had this, like, incredible alignment and forgiveness, because what's happened to her it's not who she is. It's like she was raised in the concentration camps and that really justifies whatever. And the behavior did not feel good as a little girl receiving it. No. But there's this part of me that, and the gift she's given me is that I look at situation and I'm able to say, what's happened to you? Like, what's going on? Do you need a hug? Like, what happened? And I think as you were talking, I just had this, like, melting of, wow, like, no one is born with, like, I am going to destroy this world and hurt people. Something happens to people, and somehow they believe that that's all they have, all they are.
Yeah. And I mean, that's not to say that you have to share space with them. I had a very, inappropriate father who was very, very unhappy while he was on the planet. And I think used a variety of ways to get happiness in ways that were not appropriate. And I think when I was 16, I moved out of my house and I started to just live at people's houses. And it was so uncomfortable to be told I was lying, to be told I'm making such a big deal out of it, to be told, and to feel so disruptive and to not feel normal. And I still feel like that. I'll hear people talk about, oh, their parent. I mean, and I love my mom and I love my sister and I love my family. And you hear people talk about these bonds that they have. And I'm like, I'm not like that. Does that make me weird? Like that I can't, that I had to get to a point where I'm like, this person, I know I must love him. But I remember being 3 years old and being like, I hate this word love. I don't like it. I don't like the connotations. I don't want to give it to somebody. I don't want to say it to somebody. And I still find myself now, if I am feeling particularly afraid and someone says, I love you to me, I'm like, you expect me to say that? Like, it's like, I am not giving you that. So like, I think it's appropriate to say, wow, that person's in pain. That thing is happening. And you still don't have to like, it's not your job to take care of them or to take care of that. It's your job, I think, to recognize that they're a human being who has the right to breathe air. I mean, and has integrity to want things, but they might be going around it in a way that is not appropriate, you know?
Yeah, then you don't have to get in the same train. And because what I was hearing is that you can recognize there's a bigger context, there's a bigger environment that's created this behavior. Yeah. But you can also say, and this behavior is not okay.
Not okay. And of course, like, I would love to think that, like, I sometimes like, oh, it's all the drama, you know, it's all the drama that happened in my life that I've got a huge imagination. I've got a lot of access to my emotional world. I get a lot of attention for what to me just feels like I don't work well unless I behave authentically. You know what I mean? I'm friends with both of you by dint of me being who I am. And that's kind of incredible. And I sometimes go like, okay, well, all of that made this. So for me, I bless that because this is how I know how to have access to those things. Now, are there people that didn't have any of that and still the prom queen still cries when she doesn't get the pony? Like, yes, that's still, but there's something about, again, to like my wishes or my hopes of like, gosh, wouldn't it be swell if like I had some sort of say in this in a way that I don't even consciously understand. And that I was like, I think I'm going to front end this lifetime with a whole bunch of nonsense that I then get to treat as a Rubik's Cube. Because it comes, it's like this onion of like, you know, like, oh, hello, sexual trauma. Hello. Like, here you are. And I can like complain about it. And I can be like, oh man, that really sucks that that happened. Or I can be like, okay, I got to learn about pelvic floor physical therapists. And I have to figure out, you know, the 47 weird ways to have an orgasm that might not have anything to do with another person. And we got to get a sundial and we're going to have to get 12 sugar cubes and a rabbit named Lester. And he needs to stand outside facing east. And like, not really. So see, I'm lucky because it's actually less complicated than that.
Yes. And what I am celebrating about all of us, but especially about you right now, Kirsten, is that it comes at you and you go, okay, it's what you were just went by where you said, yes, and that is it's coming at you and you say, yes, this is happening. You face into reality, and then that opens choices for you rather than ducking or trying to push back or going, this should not be happening. Right. I was just realizing the other day about how much of my misery in my life has come from saying to myself, this absolutely should not be happening right now. This is the wrong experience.
Like when you were going to the vacation and you had your boogie boards and they forgot your luggage.
Yes. This should not be, yes, absolutely should not be happening.
Right.
And what I'm hearing you being in the dialogue with through much of your life is, yes, this is happening. And now what?
Yeah, I have found that for me, I'm very lucky. My body will just, she not going to let me, like, she is not, I think my least favorite thing is when I'm around people that are going, the sky is orange, and I literally can't do it. When I was in first grade, my mom tells a story that the school teacher, and both of my parents were teachers, so you can imagine what this was like, went over to my mom and said, there are no secrets in your house, because I can't help but say it, because it feels safer. It feels like
it is safer.
And I'm not trying to like say, oh, look at the special. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying, you know, I wrote a short story about this the other day, and it's like, that would kill me. They would kill anybody. And I don't think it's fair for people to die before they're dead. So if you say to somebody else, hey, this, and you can even find a creative way to say it. You don't even have to use the proper nouns. But if you find a way that doesn't hurt another person to express what you're saying or to express it or to get it out, then that person then can be like, oh, me, oh, that, I understand that. And then it doesn't feel so like terrifying, you know?
That's really what a beautiful way to wrap up this gorgeous conversation, by the way. Thank you. The show is called Be, Play, Love. And I feel like, you know, when Katie and I sat together, like we want to share conversations, we want to invite people to play, really those 3 words. And what you just said and how you said it had this quality of like, I want to be authentic and I want to find a way to play with it because that is how I love. Like somehow I just felt like this whole moment gave us such evidence, right? Like those. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, my experience is that I could just talk to you as I experienced with Sophie. I could just keep talking to you all the day. So perhaps we might even do this again on another occasion.
Anytime you want. I was actually going to have my lawyer write up something to send you guys if I had a lawyer right now that insisted that we have dinner all together or something. Like I have to physically be in a space with you sometime within the next 6 months, or you're not allowed to air this. That's not really true, but I wanted to wield that kind of power.
You don't even need to, because we want to have it with you.
I think I know that.
Power with is yes.
Yes.
No
yes,
end.
and we want that too.
Yes. Beautiful. Thank you both so much.
Thank you, Kirsten. I just adore you. Mwah.
Oh, I adore you too. It was such a pleasure. Thank you. I felt so safe to just ramble around. So I appreciate you letting me.